It's the first Raw after the WWF gets the F out and becomes the WWE. The infamous plane ride from hell was just 2 days ago, and Scott Hall and the NWO promise a big surprise that'll change the company forever. This is the Box of Wrestling review of the May 6th, 2002 episode of Raw. We start with a hardcore match for the women's title. Champion Jazz comes out with Steven Richards and she's facing babyface challenger Trish Stratus. Trish starts the match looking pretty good. Her reward is a "We Want Puppies" chant. Alright then. We're less than 10 seconds into the first match and JR already flubs the name of the company. World Wrestling Entertainment. King comments that Jazz's boobs aren't nearly as impressive as Trish's boobs. Trish slammed right on her face. King pleads, "Don't pop the puppies." Chick kick out of nowhere, Stratusfaction, but that damn Stevie Richards pulls the ref out and hits Trish with a Stevie kick. This seems to have been a no disqualification match purely so that Stevie Richards could cheat because the ladies did nothing with the stipulation. So Jazz wins a very short match, but that's just the beginning. Bubba comes out, who got screwed out of the hardcore title by Steven Richards last week. Bubba tells himself to get the tables. Where's Devon? Ooh, sorry I asked. So Bubba gets a table, but then he forgets to use it. Bubba bomb, and he wins the hardcore title. Another very short, weapon-free hardcore match. But we're just getting started. Jazz attacks Bubba, but then Raven comes out, and now he's the new hardcore champion. But then Justin Incredible is the new hardcore champion. But actually Crash Holly's the new hardcore champion. Just kidding, Bubba is the new hardcore champion. Actually, Bubba forgot to actually pin him, and now Trish is the new hardcore champion. Bubba seems to really be considering killing her, but Jazz sprays him in the face with a fire extinguisher. Trish tries to help him. I have no idea why. Anyway, he's blind and he powerbombs her through the table. The announcers assure us he must have thought it was Jazz. Steven Richards slithers in and pins Trish to become the new hardcore champion. He gets out of there and we're right back where we started. These 24/7 hardcore rule segments are a guilty pleasure of mine. As long as they make a tiny shred of sense, I tend to enjoy them. What little we got of the women's match was actually pretty good and showed that Trish had come a long way by May of 2002. I wish they'd given Trish and Jazz more time, but I suppose complaining about women wrestlers having 1-minute matches in 2002 is a bit like complaining that the sun rises in the east. We're told the NWO is coming out, but instead we get Scott Hall, X-Pac, and Big Show. I know they were all members of the WCW version of NWO at some point, but this just feels wrong. It's like they took the Coca-Cola label and put it on a bottle of warm milk. I'm going to warn you right now, a lot of this episode bets on fans giving a crap about this knockoff NWO. Big Show brags about chokeslamming the biggest star in the WWF. Oops. Aside from the name flub, Show gives a pretty decent promo. He says he took out Austin because he main evented WrestleMania 2 years ago when Austin was hurt. And now, last pay-per-view, he was in a preliminary match on Sunday Night Heat. This might be a classic case of post hoc fallacy. Anyway, it was fine, and if only he'd stopped right there, but instead he just kept on talking forever. Eventually, Raw General Manager Ric Flair comes out. He makes a really big deal and takes a really long time announcing the main event that they already told us about at the start of the show. It'll be Stone Cold, Ric Flair, and Bradshaw versus the NWO in tonight's main event. Scott Hall says a surprise is going to happen tonight that is going to change this company forever. Other than a little explanation for why Big Show joined NWO and chokeslammed Stone Cold, this segment was a masterclass and had to say a lot of words without really saying anything. Ric Flair, in particular, seemed really off, though he did have a long night before this. At Insurrection on Saturday, Spike Dudley suffered a kayfabe injury mid-match, yet he still was able to roll up Regal and get the win. After the match, Regal beat him down with the brass knuckles, which they don't yet call the power of the punch. So it's 2 days later, and we've got a rematch for the European title. The champ makes his way out with a clear limp. So, the crummy justification for Spike fighting injured is that this match was already signed before the Insurrection pay-per-view, which is stupid for 2 reasons. Reason the first, why did they schedule a rematch for a title fight that hadn't even happened yet? And the second reason, if you're injured, you're just required to work every match they had already scheduled? Since when was that ever been a thing? Being the gentleman that he is, Regal offers to let Spike forfeit the title rather than go through with the match. Spike considers his options, then hits Regal in the face. But Spike is a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. It's not long before Regal works the leg and makes him tap out. Regal wins the title and goes ahead and declares himself the greatest European champion ever. He beats down Spike some more, and then perhaps the true greatest European champion shows up, D'Lo Brown. As a match, it was terrible. But as a segment that got heat for William Regal and introduced a new challenger, it was confusing. Why is D'Lo helping Spike Dudley? Booker T goes into a 7-Eleven. That's not the setup for a joke, look. Wow, I could swear that's Stephen Root. Why he'd be in this scene with one line, I have no idea. He's already been on King of the Hill for years by this point, but that looks and sounds just like him. Anyway, the Book buys a Slurpee, but is disappointed that there's no Booker T cups. He trash talks a sign of RVD and mostly just spends a psychotic amount of time talking to himself. Goldust arrives wearing a clever disguise. He begs Booker T to rejoin a tag team with him. Booker is teaming with Eddie Guerrero tonight and tells Goldust he's too weird and makes him uncomfortable. Goldust points out that the two are undefeated together, and Booker says that's a good point and he will think about it. Rather than take the W and leave, Goldust ruins the moment by asking Booker if he'd like a bite of his wiener. Ric Flair goes to the NWO locker to demand that they spoil their big surprise tonight. NWO isn't there, but jinkies, it's a clue. An APA hat on the floor of the NWO locker room? Say it ain't so, Bradshaw. Lillian Garcia tells us that Sean Stasiak is hailing from planet Stasiak. I think he's dumb or something. I think that's his gimmick. He's dumb. We get footage of him and Brock Lesnar facing the Hardys at Insurrection. Paul Heyman gave Stasiak instructions to stay out of the match and let Brock win by himself. He forgot and lost the match, so now Brock wants a little payback. King pitches the up-and-coming Tough Enough 3 and tells us that the next WWF superstar will need to go to WWF.com. This is a squash match. Not sure I've seen someone that looked like Sean Stasiak on the receiving end of a squash before, but here we are. Easy pin while Paul Heyman is frothing at the mouth. I liked that it had a build, but I'm not really one for squashes, so... Earlier in the night, Undertaker showed up and asked a random guy to watch his bike. This feels like it'll end well. No, random guy is bad news. The bike was taken by heavyweight champion Hollywood Hogan. I think Taker is playing heel, so I'm a little surprised he doesn't murder random guy. Maybe even a little disappointed. Last week he beat the piss out of Hogan with his own belt. The two are facing off in 2 weeks at Judgment Day for Hogan's title. And now he's coming out to demand his bike. But it's actually Hogan coming out to Taker's music with Taker's bike. He tells Undertaker, "You want your bike? Bring your ass out here and take it." Undertaker comes out to the stage and he says he's put people in the hospital for even looking at his bike the wrong way. Except that random guy, apparently. He says he's gonna give Hogan one last chance to... But even after the interruption, it's clear that Undertaker is too scared to actually go get his bike back. Hogan says if Undertaker won't come get it, he'll bring the bike to him. The bike charges forward a few feet and then comes to a stop. You can hear the crowd go, "Aww." Hogan struggles to get the bike to move more than a few inches while Undertaker pretends to be scared. A very long 40 seconds goes by, and that's an eternity when you're frozen on a moment in time that was supposed to last 2 seconds. Meanwhile, I'm laughing my ass off. This is the standard golf cart in wrestling rule where it's going to stop working when you need it most. JR makes things worse when he suggests that Hogan might just be playing mind games. Finally, Undertaker gives up and leaves, so Hogan chases him off. But then Hogan comes back and messes with the bike some more. They keep the camera on the announcers this time, but you can loudly hear it in the background.
Remember, the Undertaker basically walks away.
Amazing. But incredibly, the segment continues. Hogan drives his motorcycle through the hallway, then awkwardly turns it around and drives back the way he came. Finally, he sees a big truck and yells to Undertaker to show his face. Then, we go to commercial. Then finally, he runs over the damn motorcycle with the truck. Listen, both Hogan and Taker were good on the mic, but there's just no debating that this segment was a total disaster. RVD and Jeff Hardy come out separately, but they'll be teaming up. Booker T is here, all fueled up for his match thanks to that Slurpee he had earlier. Intercontinental Champion Eddie Guerrero is next. He's facing RVD at Judgment Day. Fun and fast-paced back and forth between Eddie Guerrero and RVD. Booker T brings some intense punches. Jeff flips in and cleans house. Great stuff. Book hits a scissor kick, but instead of pinning, decides to finish him off with a devastating spinneroni. RVD breaks up the pin. The Intercontinental Champ and Challenger get tagged in another great sequence, as you'd expect from these two. Goldust runs in to make the save and immediately gets his ass tossed out. Both Jeff and RVD go up top, and this one's over. We're well over halfway through the show, and this is our actual first match of the night. And it was a good one. It had lots of nice action, hyped the Intercontinental title match at Judgment Day, and continued the Goldust Booker T saga. Terry Reynolds is pissed. Molly Holly is going around saying she's the most beautiful WWE diva because she's the most wholesome. Ever a fan of the democratic process, Terry challenges Molly to a bikini contest to let the people decide. She asks, would you rather have pure and wholesome, or would you rather have these? Jerry the King brings out Terry and the wholesome, the pure Molly Holly, with flippers and a nose plug. King says he's hoping to God Terry is wearing a thong. JR calls Molly Holly the Hillary Clinton of WWE. Oof. Molly wears, this, and Terry is indeed sporting a thong. The crowd goes wild and Molly's outraged. Terry says Molly's just jealous of what God gave her. So we're crediting God for those tits. You know what? Never mind. Terry wins and Molly hits her with the flipper so hard she drops to the mat. Ric Flair finds Bradshaw and demands an explanation. Why was your hat in the NWO locker room? Bradshaw says he doesn't owe Flair anything. He and Austin are gonna go kick some NWO ass, and Flair can either come with them or not. That match is next, so the NWO, Flair, and Bradshaw all come out to the ring, only to awkwardly stand around while we cut away to the Undertaker. Bro, how are you just now finding your bike? Taker wanders off again and a limo pulls up. It's really silly that the NWO, Flair, and Bradshaw are still just chilling in front of the fans waiting for Stone Cold to come out. Anyway, it's Kevin Nash. We go to commercial and finally the glass breaks and here's Stone Cold. Austin starts and kicks so much ass his leg brace comes undone. He declares he wants Big Show and gets him. Austin eats a whole bowl of shit off a back body drop and Bradshaw tags himself in. And Bradshaw kicks ass. Pac and Hall are giving a lot to the baby faces here. Only Big Show is looking like a credible opponent. Just like with Austin, Bradshaw wins until Big Show gets tagged back in. A series of headbutts bust Bradshaw open. The match really slows down as they just kind of wail on Bradshaw for a few minutes. Flair still hasn't tagged in at all. We get a "We Want Flair" chant as the beatdown continues. Finally, Austin's seen enough and all hell breaks loose. Bradshaw hits the clothesline from hell but gets pulled out of the ring by Big Show and is chokeslammed through the table. I don't think he's a member of NWO. X-Pac and Scott Hall beat down Austin in the ring, but double stunner out of nowhere. Okay, that was fun, but X-Pac and Scott Hall just look like Big Show's doofus lackeys at this point. It's Austin and Big Show left, and they duel in the ring. Austin kicks him in the face and goes for a middle rope Luthez press. Love it. Ref gets knocked down, and I literally forgot this was a match. The dirtiest player in the game tries to cheat with a chair, but gets caught. Austin punches Big Show in his big balls, and it's stunner time, but no ref. And Flair clobbers Austin with a chair. Alright. Okay. I hate this. Number 1, Flair spends all night trying to frame Bradshaw, and we never really get any indication that Austin even cares, so why does he bother doing all of this? Number 2, I'm not the type that thinks everything has to be a huge surprise in wrestling, but this was just painfully obvious. I get what they're going for, replace Vince McMahon with Ric Flair, but ugh. Number 3, the whole premise is just dumb to begin with. He finds a hat. Anyone can go to WWF.e.com and buy one of those APA hats. Flair declares it'll be him and Big Show against Austin in a handicap match at Judgment Day, and then they forget to pin Austin, so the match is still going to this very day. The match was decent, but this was a wet fart of a reveal. So, what do I rate the May 6, 2002 edition of Raw? Like I said at the beginning, much of this episode kind of assumes you give a shit about the poor man's NWO. This just doesn't feel like the NWO at all. They should just rename it to Big Show and Friends.